If you look at the numbers behind incontinence in women, it's hard to believe just how big an issue it is. Incontinence affects more women than diabetes, breast cancer, and heart disease, but it doesn't get nearly the attention it deserves. That's why the National Association for Continence has created the We Count campaign to help you realize that this isn't just a you problem, it's an us problem. There are treatments available right now that can make a real difference in your life, and we invite you to take action today. Visit nafc.org/we-count for essential facts, insights, and resources on stress and urge incontinence, overactive bladder, menopause-related leakage, and more. That's nafc.org/we-count to learn more and discover that there truly is strength in numbers.
Welcome to Life Without Leaks, a podcast by the National Association for Continence. NAFC is America's leading advocate for people with bladder and bowel conditions, with resources, connections to doctors, and a welcoming community of patients, physicians, and caregivers, all available at nafc.org. Welcome back to another episode of Life Without Leaks. I'm your host, Bruce Cassover, and today we're joined by Donna Monthei. She's a registered dietitian and gut health nutritionist with EverVital Nutrition. They're a company that helps people with chronic digestive issues discover the imbalances affecting their microbiome, and that teaches them how to transform their gut using a customized approach to gut wellness. So welcome, Donna. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your story and your journey to becoming a nutritionist and a dietitian.
So I've been a registered dietitian for years, over 20 years, showing my age there a little bit, but yeah, for a long, long time, and focusing more on weight loss and kind of the usual dietitian type thing there. About 6 years or so ago, I was prescribed 2 different antibiotics, so double duty there, double whammy, to take at the same time. And I ended up really annihilating my gut microbiome, just really wiping it clean. And what ended up happening was a big overgrowth of harmful organisms and not enough of the good guys. And so I ended up with SIBO and just all sorts of symptoms. And so in solving my own problems and symptoms, I've developed a protocol that I now use to help other people with similar problems, whether it stems from antibiotics or from something else, just general gut symptoms. That's kind of where I excel and where I really have a unique approach because I've dealt with all of it myself.
I think that we're hearing more and more about gut health. I mean, you see commercials, they talk about, different things that are good or bad, or maybe you could tell us a little bit about what it's all about. I mean, about what is the nature of the gut microbiome? What does it mean in terms of your health?
So it's really an emerging field, an exciting place to be for me as a practitioner, because there's always something new coming out. They don't even know, half of what's going on in there. But what we do know is that the gut is really impactful in the well-being of many of our organ systems. Some of your listeners have probably heard of the gut-brain axis and the direct connection that your gut health has on your brain and the functionality as far as moods, as far as brain fog, that type of thing goes. But there's also a connection with the lungs, with the skin, with the vagina, all the organs are really deeply connected to the gut health. And so when you have an issue with something going on in your gut, it can affect all these other organ systems as well. And so it might not even look like gut symptoms, the things that we commonly think of as related to our digestive system, but it could be, skin problems or that type of thing. That it's really interesting in that way. So what we mean by our gut is basically our digestive system is a tube right from the mouth all the way on out. And we have some solid organs that are impactful there included in our digestive system. And that is our pancreas, our gallbladder, and our liver. So all of those together make up what we think of as our digestive system. Our gut, when we say our gut, a lot of people do think about, that system as a whole. But what I do is I really look at the health of the bugs in there. So we all know that there are millions of bugs in our digestive system, in our gut, that are beneficial to us and some that are harmful to us. And I look at the balance of those guys overall as far as how they either help with our health or detract from it.
I think I'm following you now with the idea of what the gut is. What about the microbiome? What is that exactly?
So the microbiome is the gut organisms as well as the environment in which they live. A lot of people will call the microbiome just to mean the bugs, but really it's the bugs themselves as well as the that environment and that they're living in. So what bugs are in there, right? So that is bacteria. There's also parasites, potentially viruses, fungi, and then we've got the way that those guys all interact can lead to symptoms or can lead to health. And so, yeah, it's really an interesting field with those different organisms being so prevalent in our society and some of the factors that we have that can, kill them off, like for me with antibiotics, or can help them to overgrow. So that's what we mean by the microbiome itself, is those organisms and the house that they're living in.
I hear you say things like viruses and bacteria and fungi. And I mean, if I go by what I'm used to hearing, those things don't sound like good things. Generally try to avoid those things, right? But I'm mistaken. Is that so?
So that's really a great question, because parasites we think of as, we don't want those, right? Nobody wants worms or wants the thought of that. Usually whenever I'm going through test results with my patients, I hear an audible sigh of relief when we get to the parasite section and they don't have any, right? But there's some speculation, or I guess controversy, about whether certain species of fungus can be beneficial or commensal to us. Parasites, not so much. Viruses, not so much. Bacteria, we have a lot of beneficial, of commensal bacteria that are important in doing a variety of things that we would be in trouble without them, right? But there's also harmful bacteria that we don't want. The things that we hear of, food pathogens like Salmonella, C. diff, or Giardia, some harmful parasites there. We hear of those types of things. So yes, you're right. There are lots of things that we don't want in our gut microbiome, but we would be in serious trouble without the good guys.
So I guess this brings me back to your personal story, which is, you started taking some antibiotics and you said that really did a number on your gut microbiome. What exactly happens there?
So antibiotics are designed to kill, basically, and they're not selective in what they kill. So for me, what happened, and for a lot of people, this is a similar story. I have lots of patients that are kind of in the same situation, and it depends on where you start, kind of, as to when you take antibiotics. So for some people, it's not so impactful, and they're able to recover from that without a problem, without symptoms. For me, what happened was so many of the good bacteria were killed off, and that led to a kind of a perfect storm for the harmful ones to overgrow. And that's what happened over a period of really a short time, just a couple of months, without those. I call our beneficial bacteria our guards. So without any of those guards there for me, any of the, raiders or whatever were allowed to come in and just kind of, cause trouble. And so then they are allowed to overgrow unchecked. And so for me, that led to every symptom that you can imagine. And suddenly, before that, no gut problems whatsoever. Everything was working just fine and dandy. And after that, I gained about 20 pounds in 2 months, hair falling out, nutrient deficiencies, all the GI symptoms I had, terrible diarrhea, urgent diarrhea, just kind of the gamut, headaches, and just I wasn't absorbing my food. And it just led to this whole cycle of events that put me in a pretty uncomfortable and not a great place for me to be.
I can imagine that as a nutritionist as a dietitian that was doubly difficult for you, because this is probably, really goes against everything that you're always talking with your patients about also.
Yes, 100%. I was like, if I can't fix myself, like I'm supposed to be the nutrition expert here, right? I have all this education, I have all this experience, and yet I couldn't. I couldn't fix myself with just food. It took going that extra step, doing some gut testing and figuring out what was going on. But before that, I tried lots of different protocols, to kind of general protocols designed to fix gut problems from a very general perspective. And none of that worked for me because it wasn't addressing what my problem was, which I didn't know what my problem was until I tested. But then after that, I was like, of course, these general, gut soothing supplements aren't going to benefit me because that's not what my problem was. But it took that extra step to figure that out. And it was kind of a long process and extremely frustrating. I mean, I know that your listeners deal with this, but having urgent diarrhea and being unable to calm that down, it's not fun.
It's certainly not. Yeah, you look up fun, and that's not going to be in the dictionary.
Yeah, there's no picture of that in there.
Thank goodness for that. But now I'm guessing also that, as distressing as your situation was, you're probably not unique in this experience.
No, not at all. It feels like you are when you're the one going through it, because it's not really something that you want to advertise, right? You're not telling all your friends, hey, guess what? I'm dealing with this. So it does feel like you're a little bit isolated in that respect. Since working with people, I know now that it's not. There's a lot of people dealing with the exact same symptoms that I was, kind of in secret, trying to manage it on their own, or just make it stop or mitigate it, or really alter their lives in ways that they can manage it. I don't like to manage things, though. I like to fix them, to make them stop, to correct the problem, the reason why they're happening in the first place, rather than, slap a Band-Aid on it, as I say. So I was slapping a Band-Aid on it, and it wasn't working. And it wasn't until I figured out exactly what was going on, that's when I was able to make it stop. So yes, not alone, but you do feel quite alone.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your treatment path. I mean, how did you get it properly diagnosed and then treated?
So I ended up going to a local pharmacy that was offering gut testing. And what their tests included was basically a list of organisms in my gut, as well as some digestive health markers. And it's just a simple stool test. So I did that and got my list of organisms so I could see, this is a pretty unique approach, because it provides data on something that we don't usually get data on, right? People that have diarrhea or have constipation or have whatever the symptom is, it's like, well, here's your solution. But that's not always what the solution is, because there's lots of reasons why you might have diarrhea, lots of reasons why you might have bloating, lots of reasons why you might be constipated. And there's not one fix for all of them. So having that data for me was kind of the turning point. It was, I call it the game changer, because it really allowed me to see, oh, okay, I don't have any good bacteria at all. So that's a problem, right? And I could see what that cycle was. Okay, so not enough good guys, so not enough of those guards, like I was mentioning. So that allows the harmful guys to come in, to overgrow. My digestion wasn't working properly because certain organisms were adjusting my digestive enzyme levels, and a whole host of things going on there. But having that data was really the eye opener for me as to, okay, I'm not imagining this, because a lot of people will go to a GI doc and hear, well, this is something that you're just going to have to manage if it's IBS diagnosis or SIBO, or you're just imagining this, or this is what everybody that goes through menopause is dealing with, or this is normal for you to feel this. And it's just like, well, wait a minute, it's not for me. So great for me to have that data to confirm what I was feeling in my physical body and find a real clear, solid path forward. So that's what I did with that functional, it was really a pharmacist, functional doctor at the pharmacist, to move me forward towards that path of healing, towards rebalancing my gut. And that was kind of the key for me, is just that whole rebalancing there.
So what steps did you actually take to do that rebalancing then?
So that was supplements. Some of it was lifestyle. Like I had to back off a little bit on the activity level because I'm a very energetic person. And so I was doing a lot, and I just backed up a little bit so that my body had the time and the energy to heal. So it was supplemental support, it was lifestyle factors, and then there were some dietary factors as well. And this is what I do for my patients, is I cover all three of those things. I look at, where are they starting, and what does their test show that they would benefit from? Is it, we've got these huge levels of H. pylori, for an example. Do we need to cut out the foods that feed H. pylori? In some cases, yes. So for me, that's what I did. I went to a diet that was really basically just protein, fruits, and vegetables, along with some healthy fats. And I didn't give those harmful bacteria the food that they wanted, which in a lot of cases, it's a refined carb. So I cut that out completely so that I wasn't feeding the things that I was trying to kill, and really just overhauled the lifestyle, the nutrition, and then I did support with supplements and I killed with supplements to kill off those harmful bacteria, while also really just supporting my gut overall so that it could just have that calming, soothing effect there.
How long do you think it took you to get to where you were starting to feel like you're back to normal?
So once I saw what was really wrong, like I probably toiled around for about 9 months or so before I did the gut testing. Once I began that protocol, it was pretty quick. And people always want to know that, like, how fast am I going to feel better? It really varies with what all is going on. So I have one patient that had really high levels of H. pylori. I keep picking on H. pylori, but it's a really common one. And she was experiencing significant anxiety from that, and had been for about 15 years. That's one of the bacteria that just hangs around for a long time. And so she had lots of GI symptoms, but her overwhelming symptom was anxiety, including something called trichotillomania. It's a compulsive hair pulling. A lot of times people will pull eyebrows, pull eyelashes. It's a subconscious thing. So it's not like I'm planning to do that, but it's a segment of, I don't know if it's OCD specifically or anxiety generally, but she was experiencing that for a long time. Within a week of treating her, she stopped doing that after 15 years. And so she called me practically in tears, like, I can't believe I haven't pulled my eyelashes. And so for some people, it's that quick. She wasn't cured in a week by any means, but making improvement over that period of time. For me, it was a little bit longer, but I did feel better and better. I wanted the first thing to stop was the urgent diarrhea, because it's so impactful in life. And so it's just, that was one of the things that I wanted to go away, or to just be alleviated or reduced to a degree initially. And so that probably took a couple of weeks for things to just really calm down in my gut for that trigger to stop. And then, as I said, with the other patient that I mentioned, it's a slow and steady process of feeling better and better week over week. It's, definitely not a light switch. Unfortunately, I'd love to be able to flip that switch and have everybody feel better immediately, but it really does not work like that. You have to approach it from, okay, what's the biggest problem here? Take care of that, and then move on to the next thing and the next thing.
It's really interesting. You're talking about also about H. pylori. That's the bacteria that's often associated with ulcers. Is that correct? With the majority of stomach ulcers, and that's usually dealt with via antibiotics, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yes. So the typical treatment for H. pylori is something they call triple therapy. I hear now there's a quad therapy, but the triple therapy is the usual approach, and that is 2 antibiotics as well as a acid reducer, a proton pump inhibitor type medication is what they call it, like omeprazole or something like that. And the idea is to stop the stomach acid or decrease the stomach acid production, and then kill off the bacteria with those 2 antibiotics. The problem is that H. pylori already neutralizes stomach acid in everyone. That's kind of its role. It doesn't like an acidic environment, and so it neutralizes stomach acid. When you also throw a proton pump inhibitor that's an acid reducer, acid blocker on top of that, basically the acid production is taken down to nothing, which, as you remember from my story, that's what allows the overgrowth of harmful organisms. And so in a short, very well managed situation, that can work to get rid of the organisms, the H. pylori, and then keep the environment where H. pylori will be present and able to be killed. But long term, the problem is that a lot of people stay on those PPIs long term, and then that keeps their stomach acid not acidic enough. And so they end up with either H. pylori coming back or with some other organisms regrowing in a state of, they call it dysbiosis, when there's too many harmful organisms and not enough of the beneficial organisms. So that is super common for people to be treated with H. pylori and then it comes back, or it never left all the way. And then those acid reducing medications keep the environment perfect for it to stay around or regrow.
It sounds like an incredibly delicate balancing act then.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm wondering, your patients, it sounds like you probably treat a variety of people, maybe those who have had conditions that are as severe and distressing as yours, but maybe people who have things that are not quite as extreme in the way they present. Is that fair to say?
Yes, absolutely. Some people come in there and we test them and we see that they don't really have much in the way of anything harmful overgrown. Their problem is more on the end of the spectrum where they don't have any beneficial bacteria. So what we know is down the line, they will eventually end up with an overgrowth of something harmful because their guards aren't present in enough numbers. And then all the way to the other end of the spectrum, I have lots of patients with SIBO. That's the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. That's when there are harmful organisms overgrown in the small intestine, where usually there aren't many organisms. That's kind of the worst of the symptoms, worst of the diagnoses rather, that someone can get because they feel like it's a lifetime thing that they can never resolve. Kind of the same thing with IBS. I do have a lot of IBS patients, which I don't necessarily like the diagnosis or the label of IBS, because docs will tell their patients, okay, we've ruled out everything else. And that's what it is. There's not a test for IBS. There's just ruling out everything else. If we can't find out what box you fit into, then you go into the IBS box, which then they're sent home with a low FODMAP diet plan and a pat on the back. And it's like, good luck to you, right? And I don't like that for people because it makes them feel hopeless. It makes them feel like, okay, this is something that I have to manage for the rest of my life. And it's just simply not the case. I have a whole practice full of people that have this IBS diagnosis, have been on some medications like those PPIs I mentioned for 20 years, 10 years, a long time, and trying to manage things by, slapping the Band-Aids on there. And once we balance their gut, the symptoms are gone. And so, yeah, I do have all the way from people with just not enough beneficial bacteria or just something like H. pylori, all the way to full-on SIBO.
So if I'm a patient who's having some sort of digestive issue, somebody who's listening to this is, probably dealing with something related to incontinence, perhaps, bowel incontinence issues of some sort or another.
Yeah.
How do I know it makes sense for me to come and visit you?
So most people can benefit from knowing what's in there if they're dealing with any sort of bowel incontinence or any GI symptoms, really. It's so fascinating. The oral microbiome has an impact, and the gut microbiome has an impact really on our health as a whole. But if somebody's dealing with fecal incontinence, then something's going on, right? So we want to get to the cause of that, the root cause, as we say, and not just manage that symptom, even if that's the only symptom they're dealing with. Likely it's not. Once I start asking questions, hey, how's your skin? Hey, how's your mood? Hey, are you experiencing anxiety? They're like, oh, yeah, I am. I forgot to put that. I forgot to say that. It's usually much more system-wide rather than, or I should say body-wide, than just a matter of fecal incontinence. Usually there's a reason for that to happen, right? And if we've ruled out the physical things that can cause that, then it's like, well, okay, we're left with the bacteria. And so, or organisms, I should say, what is causing that? There's a lot of reasons why someone could have that symptom specifically. I see it all the time with parasites. I see it all the time with C. diff. There's certain organisms, just the simple fact of them being present can cause that urgent diarrhea or incontinence.
There is one problem, though, and that is I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you because that means that I have to discuss this problem.
Right.
What do you say? What do you say to somebody who's thinking that?
So I have an ability to put people's minds at ease in that way. I know it's generally something that people don't want to talk about. A couple of things, like I'm a mom of boys, and so I've spent my life basically poop talking, and so I have this way of being, and whenever I talk about my own issues, that often puts people at ease with discussing their specific issues. And I'm really kind of just matter of fact about it, like, okay, if you're dealing with whatever it is, I've done that too, or I know people that have had that too. And so it's just a symptom. It's not, even though we do, think about that. I don't want to tell anybody about this, but it is just a symptom that we can manage. And so we have to know that it's present in order for us to get rid of it. So let's just, I don't know. I haven't really had people, once they get to me, have that situation where they don't want to discuss it. I do a lot of my patient discussions and appointments via telehealth. And so I don't know if that helps, that they're not sitting in the room, physically with me staring at them or what it is, but I don't really have a problem with people feeling uncomfortable discussing their symptoms with me.
The scariest thing may not even be that, because once you're actually speaking to the professional, you've already sort of gotten through whatever the gatekeepers might be that prevent you from getting there. It's that very first call when I know somebody is going to be answering the phone. What do you recommend? Is there something that I should say to help get the conversation started in a way that doesn't feel really, frightening to me?
I don't know. I just suggest that people be honest. If you're dealing with something, you're not the only one. By far, you are not the only one. And you are not the only one in that person's practice that is dealing with whatever it is. It's really funny because we as humans tend to normalize our symptoms. I'll hear people say all the time, well, this is just something that runs in my family, or this, we all have gut problems, or we all have abdominal pain, or we all have, this urgent diarrhea, we all have whatever it is. And it's just like, well, maybe you all have the same issue going on, and it's not a genetic thing, and it's not something that you can't fix. And so I think for people, if they're just honest about what they're dealing with, that can definitely help them get help faster. If it's somebody that's dealing with me, I just put people's minds at ease. That very first call that I have with them is usually just like a meet and greet sort of thing, like, hey, is there something I can do to help you? What are you dealing with? And once I get people talking, and I think that this is probably pretty common across practitioners, once you get people talking and they realize that there's not any judgment there, they just speak freely.
So I get through the gatekeeper. I've made my first appointment with you. What is the relationship like? What is a typical appointment like? How does that go down?
So once we've decided that we're a good fit, that the potential patient is dealing with something that I can help, because there's some things that I can't. I don't work with people that have physical obstructions or anything like that. That's something for them to manage with an MD. But once we determine, okay, this sounds like a good approach, and we want to move forward, the rest of it is super easy. It's just a matter of pooping in the French fry container. So I just send them the test kit that arrives to their house so they can, provide their sample in their privacy of their own home. It really is a French fry container that you provide your sample in and gather up some different sections there and put it in the little vial, just send it right back to the lab. I always tease people and say, yep, they're putting their hazmat suit on and they're digging into your sample right now, figuring out what's going on, but it's not really that. It's amazing technology. They provide the actual number of the organisms in your gut, whether that's the parasites, the viruses, the bacteria, and the fungus. It's just a super simple at-home stool-based test that you just do your thing, send it back to the lab, and then roughly, I think their turnaround time is about 10 to 12 business days. And then you get your report, and it's got, the list of the organisms and the reference range and where you are. So you get an actual number for that organism, for each organism. And then kind of what's going on there. From there, I take that and I prepare an analysis in writing for my patients. I want people to really thoroughly understand exactly what's going on in their gut. And so that takes some interpretation. That's part of my specialty. I started out my professional adult life as a computer programmer. And so I do have that analysis side of things. And so I use that in helping people to understand their current status. What does their test show? And what the heck do we do about it? How do we get you back to a balanced gut with a perfect environment and optimal digestion so that you don't deal with these symptoms?
So then you work with them, you give them a game plan. And how often do you guys, would you meet and confer?
So I meet with them once a month via Zoom so that, we have eyes on each other, we can go through whatever. But I also offer for every single person that I work with the ability to text me or email me as often as needed. If that's all day, every day when they get started, then that's what it takes. And this is for lots of things. This is for compliance. It's for, hey, is this what I'm feeling normal? Should I be experiencing this? How many times I'm confused on my plan? How many times should I be taking this certain supplement or whatever it is? I am available for my patients to have someone to ask those questions. A lot of times they'll go to their doctor and they'll get their plan and they'll be sent home and they say, okay, come back in a month. Well, sometimes a month is too long. If you've got questions, you need to ask those questions. And so I am here for that. And that's part of the benefit of working with someone like me, that I do address the issues or the whatever it is when they are occurring instead of waiting for the next monthly appointment. It's funny, I get positive feedback as well as, what do I do here? Is this normal kind of things? People will just text me and say, I had a brown poop today. Just like, okay, here we are moving forward with some positive steps here. And so, yeah, I know what it feels like to be dealing with symptoms and feel like you're alone and that nobody can help you, or that you have this diagnosis that's a lifelong thing that you just have to learn how to manage. And I really intimately understand that. And so I am very invested in my patients not feeling like that, not feeling like they're alone, like they're just like, okay, here's just another practitioner that's like giving me some stuff to do, giving me some stuff to swallow, and says, good luck, and sends them on their way. That's not at all my approach. I don't want people to feel like that at all, because it doesn't feel good.
And from what you were just saying, it sounds like this is or at least you practice this as a complementary modality to whatever the patient is already doing with their other physicians and healthcare providers?
Yes, 100%. Yes. I am not here to say, stop taking this med. If they want to get off of, for example, a lot of people come to me and they want to get off of the PPIs, those acid reducers. I do work with them to be able to do that. But yes, I do work in conjunction with either their functional medicine doc, their GI doc, whoever that is. I'm not there to say, that doctor's wrong or stop doing whatever they said. I go based on what the patient is wanting, what their goals are.
That's outstanding. So if I am listening now and this really sounds like something I'd be interested in taking advantage of, how do I get a hold of you?
So you can find me. I have a website. It's evervitalnutrition.com. On that website, you can click to book a free gut assessment. That's where we chat about, what's going on with you and see if my approach is something that sounds good to you. You can also, there's a contact form on my website that you can reach out there. If you would just prefer to email me, you can do that, Donna@EverVitalNutrition.com. And I'm also on Instagram. There's a lot of free information about gut health on my profile there. And I am just about to start a YouTube channel where there will be a ton of info as well.
That's awesome. We're going to put links to all of these in the show notes. So if anybody wants to be able to just click on it, take a look at the show notes, and that should direct you there as well. And
Awesome.
am I correct in saying that you are a sole practitioner? If somebody's dealing with you, they're going to deal with you directly. Is that correct?
Correct. I do have assistants, but I deal with everybody myself. It's not a student coach. It's not anybody else. It's me and my level of experience and expertise. Yes.
I do have one other question, and this is just to clear up my own confusion, because as
Okay.
maybe you could tell from my earlier question, I watch enough TV, and I see commercials for prebiotic and probiotic and other biotic. What is all that stuff?
That is a really good question. I know that the probiotic people have done an amazing marketing job because everybody knows what that is. And they almost allude to the fact that you can just solve your problems with a probiotic. So a probiotic that contains actual strains of bacteria. Now, the question is whether those strains make it alive through the digestive stomach acid, the digestive process, so that they end up in the colon where they are needed. Don't know. I think the answer is some of them do and others of them don't. So the probiotics themselves are those beneficial strains. Prebiotics are food for the beneficial strains, whether they come through a probiotic or whether they're already in your gut. So prebiotic is the food for the probiotic. Postbiotic is the substance, the metabolite that our beneficial bacteria create for us that are inherently beneficial to us. So prebiotic is the food, probiotic is the strain, postbiotic is the thing produced that's beneficial to us.
Well, that actually makes sense. I appreciate you clearing that up. So, Donna, as you know, this is Life Without Leaks. And even though we haven't been talking a lot about leaks, we've been talking a lot about digestive health. And I'm wondering if you could share with us if you have one tip or hint or strategy for people to live a life with better digestive health. What might that be?
So my tip for better digestive health is fiber, fiber, fiber. Those are my 3 tips right there. And I'm kidding, but the takeaway for your listeners is fiber. I recommend to my patients 30 plus different fruits and vegetables, herbs, nuts, seeds per week. And that's kind of a good way. Once we think about, okay, am I always eating the same green beans? Am I always eating the same carrots or the same whatever? We want a nice variety of fruits and vegetables, seeds, nuts, plants in our gut for the widest variety of beneficial bacteria to grow. What we eat feeds those beneficial bacteria, and we want a nice, diverse, strong population. And eating a variety of fruits and vegetables and plant materials will do that. And so that's kind of the big takeaway. Think about what you're eating and don't just set it on repeat, green beans on Monday, green peas on Tuesday, carrots on Wednesday, repeat. Go to the store, look at what weird things are in there. There's something called broccoli romanesco. I like to throw that in every now and then. It looks like broccoli and cauliflower had a baby. Find those weird things like broccoli romanesco and other things that you don't eat on a regular basis and toss them into your diet. Let those gut bugs have something to eat.
That is a delicious way to end things. So thank you, Don. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you sharing all of this information. I hope that anybody who's listening who thinks they might be able to benefit reaches out and certainly, does what they can to recognize when they have gut issues and really, take proactive steps to take care of them. So thank you for joining us.
You are so welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Life Without Leaks has been brought to you by the National Association for Continence. Our music is Rainbows by Kevin MacLeod. More information about NAFC is available online at nafc.org.